Well, we've all been talking boxing, seemingly, all week and all last night and all day, and it's all been about the reaction to the Anthony Joshua victory. And I'm being joined on the programme now by Frank Warren, head of Queensbury Promotions. Good evening, Frank. Well, I'm hoping I'm being joined by Frank Warren. Hello, Frank, are you there?
I'm here. How you doing, John?
Got you. There you are. I thought for a moment we've got a horrible glitch in the works.
How you doing, mate?
I'm very well, thanks. How was Saudi?
It was good. I got back late or early evening, and but it was great. I mean, it was a really good show. Good show, very exciting. Some great fights on there. I really enjoyed it.
What was your reaction to the AJ victory? Because it was, well, at very least, it was spectacular.
Well, it was spectacular. You know, that first round knockdown, and then he done with the same shot, done it twice in the second round. The punches were really good. I mean, they were perfection. Great jab, and then letting that right hand go was. It was very powerful, and he you could see everybody there. Everybody was watching it. They could see the power that he caught him with.
How much does that kind of shake up the heavyweight division? Does it change anything? Does it really send shockwaves? Because I mean, I know Tyson was sitting next to you there at ringside, so he'll have seen up close and personal just how devastating AJ was last night.
Well, he was, and he was very impressed. But he was also, as you say, I was sitting next to him there. He was cheering him on. I mean, we were both cheering him on because obviously we wanted him to come through, and he, as I say, he came through in style. It's how you go about it. And I said when we were doing the various interviews with various, obviously various parts of the media. For me, I said the first one who lands the most meaningful punch in this fight, I feel will get the command of the fight and will win it. And that's what he did. I mean, because the other guy is dangerous. He can punch. He's a big, strong man, Nagano. But they were perfect punches that AJ threw.
Frank, it's George Groves here. I wanted to let you know earlier, just in case you think I'm sitting in and earwigging your conversation, pal. In case you say anything about me. But how are you getting on? This is the fantastic and fascinating thing for me right here is, I've never seen you working with Eddie Hearn, but now you are. You two are always together. And Eddie Hearn was telling the world that he's got the number one heavyweight in the world, that it's Anthony Joshua, after his devastating win, but against Ngannou. And I was just thinking, I wonder what Frank's response is. And I haven't quite heard it yet. You're standing there next to Tyson Fury. How would you have responded to that?
Well, I mean, we're working well together. We've had a couple of meals. I mean, we're not believe you me, we're not bedfellows. Look, he's had to do a job for his man, and he's promoting his man. But at the end of the day, Tyson's got the big fight where the 4 belts are on the line against Usyk. 4 belts on the line, and he's going to fight the guy who's beaten AJ twice. So, if people want to start looking, and styles make fights and so forth, but if people want to keep looking, at like some sort of form line on this, then you can, then it's all about if Tyson beats Usyk and does it in style. I mean, Usyk, who is considered to be, he's undefeated, and some people make him the best heavyweight in the world. Some, like for example, Boxing News always rate him as number 1 heavyweight in the world. If he beats him, then Tyson's the number 1, and the only way we're going to find out if AJ is better is for him to fight Tyson down the road, and we'll see.
It's not just Boxing News, is it, Frank? Because I mean, you must be aware the odds have really tightened on the Fury Usyk fight.
Well, and I get that, and I understand that, and they're basing it off of Tyson's performance. And I'm not going to go into it. And he's one thing about him, he never makes excuses about what happens in fights. He's very philosophical and gets on with it. But there were things going on, and it was, and look, he won the fight on a bad night. He didn't look himself. I mean, it's the worst I've seen him fight since he's been with me. But he won the fight, and that's it. And AJ, you could look at it also a different way. He's got a new trainer now in Ben Davison, and he's obviously getting the best out of him. But he's fought two opponents, his last two opponents out that have got him back got him back into the public eye. Were both fights that took place in Saudi. One was against Walling, and as we say, the one on Friday night against Uganu, and he'd done what he had to do. But for me, I would say, I know people would say that, I would say what I'm going to say, but Tyson for me is the number one heavyweight. He's the lineal champion, and he's done it at the highest level. And we will, and as I say, on the 18th of May, we're going to find out who is the best heavyweight in the world against the guy who beat AJ twice.
Frank, are you worried about Tyson at the moment? Do you think that would have affected him watching that fight ringside and watching Joshua do really well?
Not in a million years. Not in a million years. It's it is what it is. Look, let me tell you something. For me, when I said whoever gets the hardest, whoever throws the most meaningful punch, it will determine how the fight goes. That's what happened on Friday night. Nagano's a dangerous guy. If he'd have caught AJ, it would have been interesting to see how AJ would have reacted, how he would have performed, but he didn't, and AJ got there first, and that's how it is. AJ now, in the meantime, is going to have to step up. He's going to have a more meaningful fight the next time out. So we'll see how he gets someone out. And we want it to keep winning, and I want AJ and I want Tyson to come through, and then down the road, we will get the fight that everybody wants to see, and that will tell you who's the best.
How much further down the road is that one now, realistically, Frank? Because I've had messages from people this week, and I suspect I know what you're going to say, but I've had messages this week, today rather, from people saying surely they can get a rematch against Usyk put to one side, win or lose, and make the next fight after that AJ against Fury. And that, and the secondary question is saying, is it totally inconceivable that it couldn't be at Wembley?
Well, I'll answer it this way. Number one is, and George could probably explain this from a fighter's point of view. When George fought Carl Froch the first time round, and there was that controversial ending. Now, he could have, if he'd have had a rematch calls, would have George said, no, I'll step aside or not, or would he do it, or would, and I know there weren't a rematch calls, or would he have done what he did, which was to lobby the IBF for the fight to take place, which he successfully done, because I genuinely believe, had George not lobbied the IBF, I don't think that rematch would have happened for a long, long time, but he did it. So if say, for example, Tyson gets beaten by Usyk, which I is not how I see it panning out. But if that happens, there's no way Tyson's going to stand aside to see Usyk fight Joshua again. And I think it's the same as it's the other way around. Tyson beats Usyk, and the reason is because first of all is the amount of purses, the amount of money they're getting paid. Why would they do that? And that was part of the deal. That's what they signed up for. That's what got the fight over the line. The fight everybody said wouldn't happen because of various reasons. Well, it has happened, but what made it happen was that Usyk demanded a rematch clause, and it's in there, and that's there. So, if Usyk says no, let them two get on, then it'll go on. But if he doesn't, then contractually, we're contractually, or Tyson's contractually bound for the rematch, and whether it takes place at Wembley or in the UK, I don't know, because at the moment it's only because of His Excellency and the Riyadh season that most of these fights are happening, and they've made them happen. So we will see, but there's some great news. You'll in the next few days, there's some news coming out, and I think everybody's going to be really happy about what they hear regarding the UK and so forth. So we'll that's it's a separate thing, but that's going to be great for British boxing. In the meantime, let's just focus on the fight taking place on the 18th, which is the fight that was the most meaningful fight and is the most meaningful fight in the heavyweight division because it features two undefeated heavyweights. That's
Frank,
what's on.
Frank, give
And
us a
after
clue.
that, we'll see then how it all pans out.
What are you going to announce in a couple of days, Frank? Go on, give us a clue.
Well, George, for the
Go on,
greatest
you can do it. Go on.
George. If we're going to announce a couple of days, and I'm going to tell you tonight, it's pointless announcing it.
He's trying to get you at a weak moment, Frank. What about the rest of the bill last night? I mean, we were just hearing from Nick Ball a little bit earlier on, the little Scouts fighter. I mean, he was so unlucky.
He wasn't unlucky. He was robbed.
Yeah.
He wasn't unlucky. Do you know what annoys me? I mean, before Tyson's fight got postponed, there's all this stuff going around about, we should get like the equivalent of boxing's VAR in. We should get instead of having 3 judges, we should have 6 judges and so forth. No, what we want is competent judges, and we need judges that are accountable. And if they do what they did on, like, for example, this guy, and we've seen it, on occasions in the past, they screw it up and get it terribly wrong. They should be downgraded like they do with football referees. They should be downgraded, not being given another assignment, and it all just goes pushed by the wayside. That's what's wrong with boxing. All these guys, when they get it wrong, there's no accountability for it. They just move on and do another fight. Downgrade them. He got robbed. It took him 4 rounds before his game plan. His game plan was to pressure the guy, and it took him 4 rounds to actually start getting his shots on target. Up to those 4 rounds, he lost those four rounds. He then knocks him down twice. And don't tell me that he, on one judge's card, he must have. If it weren't for those 2 knockdowns, he would have basically been a whitewash. It was ridiculous.
I agree entirely, George.
It's
go on.
Stupid. This is what's wrong. And he's a competitor. He fought the best featherweight in the world, and he beat the best featherweight in the world. He didn't get the decision, but I'll tell you what, he showed he is the best featherweight in the world.
Frank, you had Zhang on the card, and he lost to Parker. A lot of people had him as the favourite going into that fight. What's going to happen with Zhang now?
He'll come back. He has a rematch clause. He was the WBO interim champion, and Joe Parker done really well. He done extremely well. And when you look at that, Parker got beat by Joe Joyce. Again, there's a form line thing here. It's like, everybody looks at fights and say, well, he beat him and this one, so therefore he should get beaten by the guy who beat him. In this particular instance, Zhang you'd expect to have beaten Parker. And, up until probably about the 8th round, 7th, 8th round, it looked like that was going to be the case. But he then started running out a bit of steam. And Joe Parker got back into the fight, and I commend him for it, and went on to do what he did. But, Zhang, 40 years of age, can he come again? Can he do it? It's a tough ask. But I'll tell you what, until around that period, he was handling the fight fairly well.
You've got a big show coming up in Birmingham this coming weekend. Joe Joyce, Nathan Heaney, Dennis McCann, Liam Davis, Pierce O'Leary, the list goes on. It's going to be a terrific event, isn't it?
It is a cracking show, but I would just like to say one more thing. Mark Chamberlain made his mark as well on Friday night. He done a brilliant job there against Gavin Gwynn. I know it was a terrible injury that Gavin got, but that was a great performance. And he's become the favourite of Turki Al-Sheikh. He asked specifically for him to fight on the card, and he grabbed that opportunity with both hands. So, got to take your hat off to him. But as you just said, John, we've got a fabulous return of the Magnificent Seven next weekend, and I thought it was the British promotion of the year last year, the one we did last year, and this one is going to be good. All these really good competitive fights, all guys in meaningful fights, and it's a bit of a boxing slugfest next week, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy it.
Let's hope we're there at ringside to see it, George?
Absolutely. Frank, before you go, though, I've got to ask you, you might not have seen it. I know you've been super busy, and it sounds like you've just got back into the UK, but did you see the news broke that Mike Tyson, that is fighting Jake Paul on Netflix? And if you have heard it, what do you make of this?
Well, look, I've got to tell you, first of all, I like Jake Paul. I like him a lot. He's a fabulous, he's a great promoter. He is a great promoter, and he's done well for a guy who, coming from the background he comes from, which is quite a privileged background. He wasn't, he's not a guy like yourself or like me who's come from the sort of tough side of the streets and so forth, and came through boxing. He's done very well as being a prankster, and the majority of his fights were all, well, that's what he was, wasn't he? He's like a modern day candid camera, and he's come from, and the majority of his fights were this YouTube type of, which was a YouTube or influencers, whatever you want to call him. He was that background, and I applaud him what he's doing. But a 58-year-old man, do me a favour. It shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be happening. But having said that, in this day and age, some of the stuff I look at what comes on it, I'm sort of like, I just can't believe how it's coming about. But it does, and these guys make a lot of money from it, and they know that the consequences could be severe because it's a dangerous sport that we're in. But if it's properly medically supervised, they got some decent officials in there, and and at times they can be protected from themselves. Then who am I to criticise it? But for me, it's not something I have any interest in whatsoever.
Thanks. So, Frank, thanks ever so much for taking the time to have a word with us. Have a good week, and hopefully see you next weekend.
Well, I'm having a great weekend. I had a great Friday night. We did a fabulous show out there in Saudi, and Arsenal are top of the league. Don't get any better, fellas.
Sheffield United got a point as well. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.